Well, hello guys, welcome back to John's Workshop and welcome into John's Workshop. So in this video we're going to be doing a workshop tour. So lots of other YouTubers, creators have done this kind of thing. It's something I've never really done. Lots of my sort of camera shots and videos have been at the individual machine in question that I've been dealing with, or on the bench, or whenever I'm making a project, just pointing at the project. So an opportunity to have a wander around the workshop and a bit of a discussion about the sort of plans, very high level plans, all subject to change in 2022. So we'll have a wander around. You can see I've drawn a plan view there of the workshop. So we'll start at the centre lathe at this end and we'll walk around the shop to the bench in the middle. When we get to the bench, we've got a bit of viewer mail to do, a couple of stickers have come in, so we'll go through those and then we'll go down the other side and largely stop at each point and not talking projects specifically, but talking more what will materialise into projects, but some plans around the different bits of machinery and kit that we've got in the workshop through 22. So without any more babbling, we'll start the tour at the centre lathe. So I'll join you there just shortly. So guys, we're in at the Harrison M300, and what I'm hoping to do in this workshop tour is show you some slightly different shots of the workshop from some different camera angles that you don't normally see, just to try and help you get a bit more of an appreciation of the workshop, how it's laid out and the sort of space that I work in. So this is the Harrison M300. I've had this for probably, it must be over a year now, year and a half, probably something like that. Incredibly nice machine. It was a very good machine when I bought it, obviously second hand. I've hardly had to do anything to it. It's been just a workhorse. Very, very good, and really impressed with it. It just copes with everything really, really well, and it's incredibly accurate and repeatable. So couldn't be more happy with the machine itself. So plans for 2022 for the lathe, really there's a few things that I've got that I'm thinking around. So I'm just going to list them now. So I want to either get or make, and it'll probably be make, because I think it'll be an interesting project, a fixed steady. So I don't have a fixed steady for this lathe. I've got a travelling steady but not a fixed steady. So that's one thing that we're going to be doing. I've got a MDRO readout unit, but I don't have the slides. So that's something else that I'd like to do during this year, is look to go back to MDRO and get the right slides for this particular machine and get myself a DRO unit set up on it. And I've got to be honest, in all the years I've worked manual lathes, I've never worked one with a DRO on it, so it's going to be quite nice to get that functionality built onto the DRO. So that's another plan. And largely for the machine itself, I think, oh sorry, there's one more thing. I do not have, and it's probably the one Achilles heel when I bought this machine, I don't have a screw cutting dial on it. So I've got no way of engaging my threads, or well, sorry, disengaging and re-engaging my lead screw for any screw cutting. I could screw cut and keep the lead screw engaged the whole time, but that's not ideal, especially with my transformer, and we'll come on to that in a minute, why that poses a particular issue for me. And so yeah, they're the things on the machine itself, but apart from that, on the machine itself, nothing additional. I'm just going to use it and enjoy using it. It's a really nice machine. So on the peripherals of the machine, plans for this year, I want to make some more quick change tool holders for the Dixon tool post, so that'll be something I'll be doing. And also I want to make some racking behind the lathe for the tool, sort of the tool holders for the tool post to go on, and various other bits and pieces. And also I want to expand my Morse taper drill selection. I've got a very few that you can see on the rack up at the top there. That's about it for my Morse taper drills, so fairly limited. So I'm going to have my eye out for any sort of eBay auctions, and I might, hopefully, if the weather's decent enough, get out to a car boot sale or two, hopefully through the year, and see if I can pick one or two bits and pieces up. So that's the kind of thing. Nothing urgently needed, it's just opportunity to expand the capability of the machine. So that's really it for the lathe. I've got to be honest, I'm just going to use it and enjoy using it. It's a fantastic bit of kit. So we'll move on to the milling machine next, and we'll talk a bit about the mill. So guys, we're in at the mill. So this is a Cormac ZX 7045, and if you go back through my videos, there's quite some videos in there about the head strip down that I did and new bearings to go in. and also the initial strip down of the machine, the bottom end of it, when I first got the machine, and some of the tidy up we did at that point. So I've been using this for about a year and a half now, and overall impressions, it's okay for a hobby machine. It's got some apologies with it, and some of those I can affect and some I can't, and what I'm hoping to do is try and get rid of some of those apologies throughout this year. So this is quite sketchy with some of this stuff because there's some limitations on A, my machining capabilities that I've got, and B, available parts. So what do I mean by that? One of the biggest issues of this machine is its rigidity and stability, and largely at this bottom end here with the spindle. So there is play in the spindle, you know, there is in all of these things. It's not a lot, but there's play in it. And also the length of overhang using a ER32 collet, I can't get, this is a Morse taper 4 spindle. Morse taper 4 collets direct into the spindle are really rare, and when you do find them they're incredibly expensive, and most of them are just imperial, and most of my tools are metric, so not very handy. So what are my plans for this? Well, anybody who's watched Stefan Gotter's Vintage channel, he's got a very similar machine. He has done the mod that I would dearly like to do, which is change this Morse taper 4 spindle unit out and put a BT30 spindle unit in. Now he bought his from a company in Germany called Kami, K-A-M-I. I've approached Kami to see if they've got the same BT30 spindle unit. Unfortunately they don't have them in stock, and they're saying they're not going to get them in stock until the middle of the year, sort of June time. I'm in no rush, so we'll let that sort of time move on and just see whether that's a likely thing to happen or not. Failing that, I might have to leave the BT30 spindle mod till later. But what I am going to do is machine, as Stefan did, the bottom of the head casting and put a collar ring around the bottom of the quill with a lock on it that will then stiffen up that whole quill and give it a lot more rigidity. So that's one of the tasks that we're going to do. That's going to be quite an in-depth and involved and interesting project, and with the risks that it could all go catastrophically wrong if I start drilling holes in the wrong place. So that's one of the mods I'd like to do to this machine this year. Apart from that, I'd also like to try and resolve my, again driven by my phase converter, which we'll come on to in a minute. It doesn't play nicely with this machine, and we'll come on to why in a moment. So I'm looking to do a VFD conversion for this mill, which will quieten the mill down considerably. I get a lot of noise, electronic noise, through the motor based on the power supply that's powering the mill. So I'd like to get rid of that noise, and I think a lot of that electronic noise transfers its way through the motor into the gearbox, into the spindle and into the workpiece. So I think by addressing that, I'm hopefully going to improve the machine's surface finish and cutting capabilities as well. So there's 2 or 3 big mods there. I guess another one is I'd like to put some kind of a machine light on this machine. I've got a spare one here, so I'm going to look to get that set up just so I've got some better light in the working area. I might go that way, or I might go with one of the ring lights affairs on the spindle. I'm not sure on that one yet. Jury's out on the ring lights at the minute until I've physically had my hands on one and used one. So yeah, those are the kind of mods for the milling machine. Apart from that, a bit like the lathe, in the periphery I really want to get some shelving and racking set up for putting all my tool holders, hopefully BT30 ones if we can get a spindle. If not, certainly the Morse taper 4 tooling for now, and some of the other bits and pieces that go on the mill. Most of them are stored in my drawer set over there, and I want to release the space for other things, so it'd be nice to have the things handy. One other potential, and this probably won't happen in 22, but it's something I might do. I want to get rid of this bell of a stand that it stands on that rings every time there's any vibration, and actually weld up a very, very rigid stand for this to go onto. Probably add a 50 by 50 box section, fill it with concrete or sand to give it plenty of mass, and build some drawers into the front of it for storing lots of the tooling for the mill, so everything's nicely to hand. So those are the kind of mods for the milling machine. So without further ado, we'll move on to the shaper. Okay guys, I'm going to dust over this one incredibly quickly. So this is my Acorn Tools 7-inch shaper. very similar to an Atlas 7B. For any more information, go back and check out my video on this that I put up about 2 or 3 weeks ago, which I titled My New Shaper. Nothing's moved with that since that video. It's a restoration project of sorts. I'm not going to strip it back and take it to its original factory state, but I'm going to get it to a decent state, bit of cosmetics. So go back and check that video out rather than us dwell on it here. There's lots of information in there around what my thoughts and plans are around the Shaper. And just to say, I'm probably going to start work on this in anger in the next 4 or 5 weeks, hopefully something like that. So there'll be some more videos on the Shaper coming shortly as we continue to strip it and then start to tweak it and start to rebuild it. So we'll move on to the bench area now, and I'll join you there just shortly. Sorry guys, just before we go to the bench, I'm going to talk about this thing, which is my static phase converter. And when I first set the shop up and I first bought my Harrison lathe, that was out and out 3-phase, and I made a decision that I wasn't going to go VFD because I knew I was going to buy 2 or 3 3-phase machines over the time, and I thought I'm going to have a look around, and being a complete cheapskate, I looked at the cheapest option that I possibly could for driving 3-phase, which was a static phase converter. Now these things aren't designed for what I'm using them for. They're designed for single motor applications. Set it, run it, leave it running, and it just runs constantly. And it's really around aircon units, that kind of thing. Something that's got a constant draw on it without variance and without start stop and all that kind of thing. This doesn't produce 3-phase power. It produces 2 phases and a dummy phase that is built up through a bank of capacitors that are inside there. And so there's 2 banks of capacitors, one as a start phase and one as a run phase is the wrong word. One as a start power source and one as a run power source. And there are various different dials and switches in there to tune the amount of start power and the duration of start power. And the issue that creates, the massive issue that creates, is my mill's got a 1 kilowatt motor on it, 1.1 kilowatts, sorry, yeah, 1.1 kilowatt. The lathe has got a 2.2 kilowatt, so double the size, and the amount of drag on both of those machines to actually get the spindle running is completely different. And the problem that creates is, when I'm switching between the 2 machines, the amount of time in the start power phase of the phase converter needs to be different, because the machine needs more drive to get it up to speed and to get it running. And what that often results in, especially on the mill, when I start it, it makes a horrible noise. When I'm running it, I've got electronic noise coming through the whole time, and when I'm stopping it, if I've not run the spindle for long, it's still in that start phase, run phase bit, and it starts clicking and clunking and making horrible noises. It's just not a good solution for multiple machines with multiple motors in a workshop. It was a bad choice at the time, and I'm kind of regretting it. Does it do the job? Yeah, it provides power. I can run the lathe, I can run the mill. Is it ideal? No, it's not, and it's starting to get burdensome. So that's why I'm going to VFD the mill, and then I can tune the settings on this then for the lathe to try and get the best out of this converter for one machine. That will help, but also what I'm aware of is, because it only provides 2 proper phases and 1 dummy phase, I am down on power on that lathe by probably 30%, 40% on what it can actually run at. So as it stands at the minute, I can't get above 1200 RPM. I've got 3 more speeds that lathe will do. This just won't get it there because I've got the settings dialed back for the 1.1 kilowatt motor on the mill, which means it's just not getting the lathe up to the speed it needs to get to. So really huge compromise, and looking back, penny pinching at that point in time wasn't a good idea. So don't know where we're going with that. 2 options are, I just VFD everything, or I look to get a rotary phase converter, and I'm really, jury's out on that, because at some point in the future I'm going to be moving the workshop to somewhere else, and that may come with 3-phase power, or I may look to get proper 3-phase power installed at that point. So yeah, I don't want to go and spend a load more money and then regret that choice in another 3, 4, 5 years time or whatever. So I'm going to kind of muddle along for another couple of years, make the improvements I can make, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, we'll move in at the bench. I'll try and get a bit of a further off shot than I normally do, and we'll do a bit of viewer mail, and then we'll move down the other side of the workshop. So guys, we're in at the bench area. As you can see, plans for that for this year, tidy it. And I've spent an hour before this video having a real good tidy up. This place was a pig hole about an hour and a half ago. So yeah, I'm not the cleanest of workers, and you know, one thing that I find that maybe some of the other creators or certainly YouTubers don't have is, you know, I'm not retired, I'm still working a full-time job, I've still got other commitments as well outside of work that I need to do, and obviously time in the workshop's quite limited, so I tend to typically dive in here for an hour a night, if that, through the week, and a little bit of time at the weekend if I can. So if you look at the sort of content of the videos coming out, there's quite a lot to do in, you know, actually making what I'm making, planning it out, ordering materials, getting it in the workshop, making what I'm making, filming it, editing it, uploading it. So there's not a huge amount of time to be using an Allen key and then going and sticking it right back where it came from, and that's really sloppy practice, and it's not how I'd like to work, but sometimes I do let things get in a bit of a mess. So we tried to tidy up a little bit. So for the bench this year, really tidying, a bit more racking, a bit more shelving. Material storage is something that I've got quite an issue with in here. I've got bits of material kicking around under the bench in boxes and bins and things like that. It kind of works, but as I get more and more material, as you know, I'm recently set up shop, so I don't have a lot to deal with, but every time I do a new project, get some new material, got some offcuts, that stock is building and building, and eventually I'm going to be tripping over it on the floor and it's going to be getting in the way. So need to think about material storage a little bit and just try and smarten that up. And then for the welding bench that sits under here, and again there's some videos way back when I made this, you can go and check them out. Plans for that is, I've not done any welding for a bit, so what I'd like to do is complete this welding table. It's still half complete, get that finished off, and I've got a set of drawers that were my dad's, and I'm going to fix them into the table at the top, so I've got some drawer space in there, and that will also help with storage. I can get some of the welding paraphernalia in the drawers out the way rather than in the stores cupboard or kicking around on the bench or wherever else I've got space. So just a bit of general storage and tidy up on the bench area really. So that's largely it for the bench area. So I'll just bring you in a bit closer now, and we'll just do a quick bit of viewer mail, and then we'll carry on with the workshop tour. So we're in at the bench, so just a couple of things. I've had a sticker in from Michelle, Rusty Knots over in Belgium. I'm sure most of the people who watch me watch Michelle anyway. Fantastic channel, and when I get time plugging through his old videos, I've done lots of really good videos on shapers, and that's all, as I said in my recent video, all good learning for me, because I'm at ground zero in terms of experience really on that. So yeah, go and check Michelle's channel out. His sense of humour is absolutely fantastic. He makes me smile and giggle every time he puts a video out. Very interesting man to watch, very good engineer, and very capable of making really nice things out of almost nothing at all. His philosophy is to reuse, remake, make something into something else, and some of the work he does in his workshop is absolutely fantastic. In fact, all of the work he's done in his workshop is fantastic. So yeah, go and check Michelle out if you don't already watch his channel. Yeah, really interesting guy to watch. So we'll get that up on the sticker board just shortly. Michelle, thank you for that, and I'll be getting one of my stickers off in the post here hopefully this weekend. And then this next present, so So this was a gift sent in to me from Chris at Dreamsteam. So, and again, I don't know, I don't have a sticker, but I'll try and get something and stick it in when I'm editing this so that you can see his channel logo. If you've not already seen Chris's channel, please go and check Chris out. He's not an engineer. He's not got any real engineering background. That's not his trade and not what he's done. But he started getting into the engineering side, and you know, as an engineer and a trained engineer who's spent my entire career in engineering, Chris absolutely puts me to shame in terms of the work he does by hand with hand tools. Absolutely amazing. And to say he's just learning, and with a bit of backwards and forwards talking to Chris, you know, he's actually learning on the job. So when you watch the videos he's putting out, he's not learning and then filming, he's actually learning while he's filming. And some of the work he's done is absolutely fantastic. So he's just building, or in the process of building, a final assembly of a small model steam locomotive, and the majority of that has been done with a file and with handwork, and utterly fantastic. Really clever guy with his hands, and the work he produces is really good. So I got a belated Christmas present from Chris, so he sent this through in some nice wrapping paper. So we'll just pop this out, and this, oh sorry, I've got it wrong, I do have a sticker. Sorry Chris, there you go, there we go. So that's Chris at Dreamsteam. I forgot I'd put that back in the box. So yeah, go and check Chris's channel out. So we'll get that up on the sticker board, Chris. And Chris has sent me, it's a marking out tool, and you see him use this a lot on his channel. And the moment I first saw it, I thought, that looks like a handy bit of kit. And I never said anything to Chris about that, and lo and behold, he then sent me one through completely unprompted, and really, you know, I've not used it yet. That's fresh out the packet, but I definitely will be using this, and Chris uses this to good effect. So it's a marking out device, and it's got a vernier scale on it. I don't know whether that's showing. So it's a bit like a vernier and a vernier scale, so you can set that at your desired length, and then you can use that up against the edge of a piece of material. You can't see that, where are we? Let's find something that looks like a piece of material. There we go. So you can set that to your length and push it up against the edge of your material, and then you can scribe quite accurately across the end face, and you can also slide that along and scribe a parallel line to an edge face and things like that. And yeah, Chris really uses this to good effect in his videos. I've never seen these before until I saw Chris using them, and now I'm the proud owner of one. So Chris, thank you very much. That is a fantastic addition to my armoury. I don't have a lot of marking out gear really. It's something that I do want to get more of as I go through, so that will be taking pride of place in with the tools in the tool drawer. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you Chris, much appreciated. And as I said, please, you know, if you don't know Chris's channel, please go and check him out. His work is utterly amazing. Okay, just moving on, I'll whip the camera around and we'll continue with the tour. Alright guys, so we're moving on to the Eagle hand operated surface grinder. So fairly new acquisition into the shop, and to be honest, other than a bit of a clean down, and I did some significant work on installing a new motor, and again I was having some challenges with electrics and three-phase power from the static phase converter, so we converted this to a VFD, and all that's good, all that work's done. So I've done a little bit, fitted an extraction unit to it, and if you look back in my videos you'll see some of the work on fitting that, on the work I did putting new bearings in, and basically sort of reconfiguring the head and the pulleys, the motor, sorry, in the bottom, and reinstalling all of that. Since we've done that, we've ground the table surface, which is covered in WD-40 at the minute, just to try and prevent any rust, and we put a back fence on, and that's all in previous videos. And largely, other than that, this has stood here and done nothing. So, and it's here waiting for the right time, and there will be projects upcoming, I'm sure, throughout this year when this gets used, and as there's parallels to grind, there's various different things from a tooling perspective, and also there may be some specific projects that call for some grinding to be done. So the good news is I now have the capability. I've got I've got a lot more learning to do about this machine because it's quite unique. It's not as good as what I'm used to out of industry, because you can't balance the wheel at all. There's no balance capability, so yeah, it's a little bit different, but I'm sure I'll get used to it and figure out ways to work around the sort of apologies that it's got. But despite all of that, it's a surface grinder, it's in very good condition, and it's a useful addition to the shop. So in terms of plans for 22, really use it. It is kind of the plan, and to do that I need to invest in some different wheels. So I've got this old wheel that came with it that's about at the end of its life. I've got a new one of these wheels, but I also need to invest in some aluminium oxide wheels, a couple of different grits, just so I've got some options around me in terms of putting different materials on to grind. The only other thing I'd like to do, and I've got some materials here to do it, but I've just not got round to it yet. So this wheel rotates in a counterclockwise direction, so all the muck and everything's going this way. Obviously we've got the extractor which contains a lot of that now, but still some gets by. So what I want to do is build a guard at this end of the machine to try and contain as much of the escapeeism that goes past here, and also potentially maybe might look at some kind of a coolant mist system for this machine. I think heat is a big issue on this grinder from what I've learnt already, so might look to invest in some kind of coolant misting system. That obviously means investing in compressors, air lines and all the rest of it. I've got a little compressor, but it's really far too noisy. It's a dry one, and I really don't want to run it in this workshop because it's so old and it's so noisy and it takes so long to get up to any kind of pressure. That's why I just don't bother. But so that's a long way off. It's not super critically urgent at the minute. It's just something that we may stray into during the year. I think I might have said 2020 a minute ago, apologies if I did, during 2022. So that's really all there is to say about this. I can't really tell you any more other than what's in the videos that are already on the channel, because I've literally not used it since I got it installed and did a bit of work. But a very handy machine, and will come in useful at the right time in the workshop. So next up, guys, is the Cormac 4x6 bandsaw. Not much to say about that other than its moved position with the shaper coming into the workshop, and it's quite a much better position actually, because now I can put bar stock in and it will feed under the surface grinder, no collisions that way, and also it will feed in front of my tooling cabinets, which we're going to come on and move to in a minute. So I could get, I can get some good lengths of bar in here now, all under the roof of the workshop, whereas before I needed to move it every time I wanted to put any long length of bar in because it was colliding with the mill. So in a much better position, but as you can see, very tightly spaced up against the surface grinder. Nothing more to say about the bandsaw. It's a bandsaw and it's very useful. The only other thing to say is about my vertical table that I made for it. Again, there's a video in the description for that. Very quick to fit. Basically clamp this in the vise, put it in position, and incredibly sturdy vertical table. You can see the thickness of that. That's almost 12mm thick, and a welded steel construction underneath. So a bit overkill, but it certainly doesn't go anywhere when it's in position. Very, very good. Very pleased with it. The only thing I want to do is, if you look in the back, there's a bit of a big counterbore. This was a plate used for something else and I repurposed it. I'm going to make a nylon bung that will fit in there, a couple of clamps or something, or screw heads just to hold that in position, and that will then make this hole much smaller, just very close fit around the bandsaw blade for when I'm cutting real small bits of stock. But yeah, so that's the bandsaw. So we'll move on to the final position pretty much in the workshop. So almost our final position. This is Taylor and Hobson pantograph engraving machine. It appears I can't even give this thing away. I've tried advertising it a few times. It doesn't. I've got the spindle, but the spindle's shot. It needs a new spindle putting in, and the cost of a replacement spindle. You know, these spindles are built in a vacuum controlled environment, very specialist. I guess I could make one, but for what this actually does in terms of engraving, for the kind of engraving I'm going to need to do, it's far too overkill. It was bought after one too many drinks on a Saturday night on eBay many years ago. It's been completely stripped, refurbed by me, other than the spindle. It's in really good condition, a really solid machine, but it takes up a huge volume of space in here for the amount of times that I'm ever going to want to use it. So I'm really looking to get rid of this, get shot of this. I've tried a few different avenues, very difficult to sell, largely based on my location, but also one or two other, not having the spindle and things like that. It's not that appealing, I guess. So jury's out on this. You know, originally I'd thought about modifying this to become a little milling machine, vertical mill, making the spindle head for it or something. Don't need that now. I've got the Cormac. So the only other option that's popped into my mind more recently is maybe thinking about a future conversion of this into a tool and cutter grinder of some sort. But again, it's not really ideal, especially with all these open slideways, although I could do something with that. But just the general size and shape of the thing, albeit very solid. Anyway, jury's out. If the right person, I'm going to keep advertising, and hopefully somebody's, you know, it's probably worth what it would cost to ship this somewhere in its scrap weight. Largely that's probably all it's going to go for, because it's these things aren't that much in demand anymore. While we're talking engravers, let's move to the next and final bit of the workshop. So we're at the end of the tour almost, so we're nearly back up to the door again. This is my newer engraving machine. So it's an Elmagrav engraver. It's a powered machine, very, German machine, very clever the way it works. Recent purchase, not touched it since it came into the shop. It needs a full strip down and a good going over. Get rid of some of the rust. Check out all the bearings. This table here, whole unit slides on about 20 odd bearings that sit underneath this table. They're all gummed up, so they all need taken apart, cleaned. Get rid of all the rust on the table. Make some new handles where the handles are broken for the table travel. Fix the copy plate piece at the bottom so I can put my copy in there, and then learn how to use it. So thank you to my 2 subscribers that have helped me recently in translating the German manual that I'd got. I need to sit down and thoroughly read that and understand it. And that's sitting on top of 2 sets of drawers, largely, one full of measurement equipment, and I've shown that in one of my previous videos. If you go and look at the shadow foam review video, you'll see when I've done all the work to, just move the camera, when I've done all the work to get all my measurement equipment all neatly stored in shadow foam, which is fantastic, and it's a real benefit. Now I've got all of that done, I've got a bit more to do, some newer measurement equipment still to go in there, and some more things to do with the bottom drawers in both sets in terms of storage. As I said earlier, when I get more storage around the lathe and the mill, that will free up some space in these drawers for other things, and I can get some proper storage going on. Got my surface plate, 300 by 300 granite square, and microscope, and sitting up all behind that is what I call affectionately the command and control center. So this is where I've got a tablet driving a monitor, so I can view drawings in here. I can link the microscope up to this, various different things. I've got music that I can play. I've got a set of speakers. I don't often have music on in here, if I'm honest, but I can do that if I want. So yeah, just an information station for the workshop. Not linked to the internet or anything, just completely standalone, but very useful, and a lot easier than bringing paper drawings out and trying to find somewhere to stick them. And it's right behind the lathe and the mill, so I can have my drawings up on there and work readily at the machine tools. And that concludes the tour. So I will jump back to the whiteboard and we will close out the workshop tour video. So there we go guys, that's the end of the workshop tour video. I hope that was interesting. Probably not so much for my regular viewers, they've seen most of this stuff, but hopefully with the title we might bring in 1 or 2 new people who've not seen the channel before and give you a bit of a look around what we've got. There's lots of bits I've missed out in that, just in the interest of time, such as heat treatment, flame burning kit, offhand grinder, pedestal drill on the bench, things like that. You'll have seen them as we've gone round. So lots of smaller kit and hand tools and things like that, but I've covered the main bits. So as I said, hope you found that interesting, and as we progress through 2022, a lot of the improvements and changes that we've spoken about there, hopefully you'll see some of those. I'm not sure you'll see all of them. They're all subject to change as the year goes on and things change and various different other things happen and life takes over. So they're the sort of high level points I've got in my mind just now. Some of them more fixed and firm than others, and yeah, you'll see some of those modifications and upgradings as we progress through the year, as well as the projects and other things that we've got going on in the background. So like I said, hope you found that interesting. Thank you all very much for watching. Thank you to the subscribers and the new subscribers that are coming along, and we will catch you all very soon on another video when we'll be making something else.